Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much for coming on a weekday. First of all, let us offer our humble obeisances to His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj. So, very briefly about His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj. Maharaj is one of the spiritual scientists in ISKCON. He appeals to all ages of audience by giving this wisdom of Krishna consciousness. I am personally very much touched by Maharaj, not just distributing this Gita knowledge, but is also personally very, very helpful in my own personal and professional lives. So please take this opportunity to associate with His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj. I also want to take a moment to thank the hosts, Sulpa Mataji and Anand Joshi Prabhuji. Haribol. Thank you for hosting this program. I also want to welcome all the new guests that are coming to this program, and also very warm welcome to Central New Jersey devotees. Thank you so much for joining us. With that, I'll give it away to Maharaj.
You're the host?
Yes, sir.
Ah. Your wife was the hostess for the program, right? Where is she? There she is, okay. And your children are here?
Yeah, they're here. One is coming, one I'll check through.
Okay, it's okay. Weekday evening, school and work and busy lives, but you came anyway. At least it wasn't snowing. But I'm going to Arizona tomorrow. A little different weather. But it's been cold there too. Gita Jayanti is when?
Saturday.
This Saturday. So this is a timely message, right? Even it's not Gita Jayanti yet. So a little background. The background is the devotees in the United Kingdom for a couple of decades. They've been closely interacting with and associating and cultivating friendships with faculty at Oxford University, very prestigious university. And one of the results of that over a period of time is that there's now officially a 4-year accredited course in Vaishnava studies under the Department of Religion at Oxford University. Many, not all, but many, a number of the professors are Hare Krishna devotees, and a number of them are not, but the devotees have earned the credibility that they're not just proselytizing group of people, they're an educational group of people. And so that Oxford University Vaishnava Studies group, combined with some people like me, that is, people that don't sit in the ivory tower, but we go out and about and interact with the public, combined together to try to make the ivory tower version accessible to the public. What's the message of Bhagavad Gita? And over a period of time it was distilled down to 6 Gita values, it was called. There's more than 6 values in Bhagavad Gita, but to give to give the Bhagavad Gita's message to the world, this was conceived of, Gita values. So I have on this table here something that you'll get later, because if I give it out now you'll get distracted. It's those 6 one-word topics with a short paragraph refined and refined by those 2 groups of people under the banner of Oxford University to teach Gita values. So this presentation is not theirs. What's theirs is the 6 values. But I was introduced to this some time back, and I found it, especially because I speak to new audiences all the time, and devotee audiences as well. So here we are. This is an introduction to this wisdom of Bhagavad Gita connected to the values of Bhagavad Gita. And if we could turn these lights down, that would probably help. Right over your head? Oh, look at that. Fantastic, thank you. That's good. I can see. So, a little summary at the beginning. The ancient Vedic wisdom presents to the world a yogic way of life and teaches people how to become such a yogi who is not disturbed in mind, even amid the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger. Such a yogi is called the sage of steady mind. So that would be nice. Be a sage of steady mind. And part of the challenge, a big part of the challenge, is this. And what this is image that shows, for those who, yin-yang. We're in the world of duality. As that short paragraph indicated, there's, well, you know the verse because you're experienced devotees. Matra sparsha sukhaunteya chitoshna sukha dukkata agama payo nityas tang satiksha sabharata. This is a place of duality. Wherever there is this, there's that. It's just the nature of the place. There's daytime, there's nighttime. There's dry and there's wet. There's happy and there's sad. There's winter and summer season. There's honor and dishonor. There's this and there's that. Wherever you can think of, its opposite also exists, because this is a place of duality. Now the thing is, we want the happiness part without the other part. And there's the other part. As soon as you want the happiness part, you're buying yourself into the duality program. But the soul by nature is ananda, sachit ananda vigraha. By nature, we're full of happiness. So we want happiness. It's not stop wanting happiness, that's the solution, because you get the other side, the unhappiness. So what's the alternative? The happiness alternative. One of the college programs that I was recently asked to speak at the University of Illinois at Chicago, UIC, that was the title of the presentation, The Happiness Choice. You can choose that one, but as soon as you choose that one, you get the duality. So what's the happiness that's without the duality? That's transcendental happiness. And the yogic way of life, using that language, is to experience transcendental happiness that's not mixed with duality. However, we're very habituated to, say it stronger, addicted to material happiness. That defines our sense of happiness although that's not what real happiness is, and it buys you into the duality program. So Bhagavad Gita requires a person to be thoughtful. Prabhupada's phrase, Manishinam, thoughtful. Or the previous, a sage of steady intelligence, Stita Pragya, in the language of Bhagavad Gita. I had a discussion with an Ayurvedic physician some years ago. He pushed my button. He was saying how Ayurveda can take you to a Stita Pragya position, and I jumped on him. I normally don't do that. I surprised myself, because normally I said that Stita Pragya without bhakti is nothing. Please don't say that, because I have a relationship with the man, so I could speak like that. But this sage of steady intelligence is to see that there's a happiness beyond this one, the duality one. And that's what Bhagavad Gita is taking the reader, or how to know what transcendental happiness is. So along with the duality, there's negative emotions, and we don't like them, and we want the happy ones, but we have to strive for the transcendental ones. And then you're in store for another mystery, like feelings of separation and other things that look like sad, but they're ecstasy. So ancient Vedic literature, which gently helps one move towards transcendence. This is for our public audience. So a little background on Bhagavad Gita. And before we speak about Bhagavad Gita, we'll take a look at who is Arjuna, because he's the one that's receiving this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So you all know, but for a new audience, Arjuna is one of 5 brothers, sons of Pandu. Pandu was to become the king. He became the king, but he died young age with 5 young boys as his sons. And the whole of Bhagavad Gita fits into his Mahabharata. There's an intrigue between the 5 brothers who were to become the king and their 100 cousins who were the bad guys. So it's a good guys, bad guys struggle, classic, novel theme, but it's not a novel, it's history. And they all had one common teacher that's pictured here, Dronacharya. And Dronacharya was a Brahmana, but he learned military skill from none other than Parashuram. And Parashuram taught him everything, and so he's now teaching these children, young boys. And the best of all his students, particularly with archery, was Arjuna. So the best of archers. In the background you see that golden eagle, and there's a nice Mahabharata detail. The boys were getting an exam in their archery skills. And what do you see? They see the tree, they see the bird in the tree, and then Arjuna just saw the eye of the bird. So he shot the arrow and pierced the arrow, pierced the eye. So, best of archers. And he used that archery skill to win the hand of Draupadi, who's pictured there holding the garland. And down at the bottom, it shows reflection of a fish that was up in the ceiling. You know the story. Up in the ceiling, and there was a revolving metal disc, and the fish was on the other side of the revolving metal disc. And as the disc was revolving, you had to look at the reflection of the pool of water and pierce that revolving metal disc so it would shoot the fish in the ceiling. And nobody could do it, but Arjuna could do it. And so he won the hand of Draupadi by his archery skill. So he's the best of archers of his time, at least. can't say better than Ramachandra, but the best of archers of his time. And as fate would have it, the 100 brothers were conspiring to kill the Pandavas, etc., etc., and it came down to a big battle without all the intrigue in between. And there's Arjuna standing in that chariot, and the chariot driver is Krishna, and on this side and that side are the array of the two armies. So he requested Krishna to draw the chariot between the two armies so he could see who was arrayed there, and guess what happened? He had some negative emotions, really big ones. Arjuna's life also presents him with triggers of distress, and let's see how he turns distress into yoga. The yoga of distress. One way of looking at it. So here's one of Arjuna's distresses. My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. Anxiety. Even Arjuna. My body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. See his bow slipping from his hand? Looks like the arrows are falling out of his quiver too. So he's feeling some negative emotion of fear. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune. That's not optimism. He's feeling very pessimistic about what's about to happen. Another nice painting here. Later in the same chapter. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed. He already dropped his bow. And unresisting on the battlefield. Hopeless. I give up. And Prabhupada comments, the perplexities of life are like a blazing forest fire which is not set by anyone. The miseries of life similarly appear without our asking for them. The happiness comes too. It's just part of the duality picture. So we are not in the middle of a battlefield where there's big soldiers and we're not the best of archers and all of those perplexities, but we have our own set, and the main battlefield for every one of us is the battlefield of the mind. This and that. Expecting happiness and you get something else. So let's see how this distress situation for Arjuna or for us can switch around the negative emotions or the distress into the path for the highest yoga. That would be nice. It is true that sometimes difficulty turns into opportunity. Doesn't always seem like that when we're passing through the difficulty. So there's messages of Bhagavad Gita that are helping Arjuna to go from distress to transcendence. And at the end, he's ready to go and engage in Krishna's service. So it starts with understanding ourselves as spiritual spark living entities. You know, the classic, who are we? I'm going to just take a little pause and a little detours. One of my favorite stories these days. Some of you heard it too many times already. One of the places that I visit since 2010 is China. I don't spend so much time there, but I like the Chinese people. The government's another story, but there are government's another story too. And people are fantastic. So one of the places that I visited a while ago is Chengdu. And I never heard of Chengdu before, never saw it on a map even before, but I know somebody that was accomplished in Bhakti Shastri, and they moved to Chengdu and they became a yoga teacher at a yoga studio, and they invited me to come, and the yoga studio owner wanted me to come, so I came, visited Chengdu. And it's a longer story, but the short part is that the yoga studio owner was a very accomplished lady in her early 40s, I would guess. I didn't ask her age, but that's my guess based on things she said. Well, here's one. She had a whole long list of topics to select from. One of them was the art of meditation, overcoming anxiety. So I was curious. Right at the beginning of the class, I asked her, out of all those options, why'd you pick that one? Very articulate lady. She stood up, looked around the room, smiled, and said, I know my staff very well. It wasn't her clients. She had a staff of about 50 people, and they all had uniforms. The instructors, this uniform, the hospitality people, uniform, and the office people, uniform. But they're all her staff, and she said, I know my staff very well, and they're all in anxiety. And they're going. And she said, and I think the reason is they don't really know what happiness is. And they're trying for happiness. They think that they know that happiness is. When it doesn't happen, they're feeling anxiety. So that's why I picked the topic, because I'd like to hear what you have to say about overcoming anxiety through meditation. And sure enough, the questions that came at the end is this anxiety, that anxiety, and all connected to they don't even know what happiness is. And they're getting distressed instead of happy, the duality thing. So at the end of those three presentations, we somehow we connected very well. So she wanted some personal discussion time. So there was the yoga instructor that knows Bhagavad Gita, and then there was a translator, and then there was the yoga studio owner and myself, and there's just the four of us sitting there. And so, what's on your mind? And she got right into it. She said, since I was a little girl, I had this deep sense that there's a mission in my life. And when I was feeling like that, people were telling me, they were encouraging me, you should do very well in your studies. So I bought into it and did really well I was a great student. And after some time, I realized that's not my mission in life. And so someone said, well, of course not. You have to make a bunch of money. You're smart. Go make a bunch of money. And so I went out and made a bunch of money doing this and that. And I realized making a bunch of money isn't my mission in life. And then somebody said, well, of course not, because you can't just make money. You got to help other people be successful. You got to be a leader. So I bought into it and became a leader in this and that, the other thing, and did that for a while and realized that's not my mission in life, being successful and helping people be successful monetarily. That's not my mission in life. And then somebody said, well, of course not. You have to be compassionate. You have to do things to help other people and use your wealth and your leadership and your intelligence and, go out of your way and do works of compassion. And I've been doing that for some time, and there's this feeling there's something missing. So, like, what's next? She didn't use those words, but where do I go from here? So how would you answer a question like that? So I gave her this one. I said, just we've had some nice exchanges, so I'm going to speak very openly. I feel you're an educator. You have a lot of wisdom that you want to share with other people. That's why you selected the topic that you did and so forth. But you don't know who you are. So over here, this one of your yoga instructors, she understands Bhagavad Gita. She teaches Bhagavad Gita. So learn Bhagavad Gita from her. And then you'll start to understand who you are. And that's just the beginning. There's further steps, but that's what's next. She said, you're right. And she's been following up. We just communicate. She's doing lots of making money and the other things that she was already good at. That's just fine. But she's also going down the path of learning who she is. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us that important understanding. Because gosh, if you don't know who you are, where are you going? And where do you come from? Another good. When you start to ask that question and get a blank stare back, then the other questions become natural questions that you also don't have answers to. Where do we come from? Where do we go? What's our higher purpose of life? What's this human mission? And these are the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita teaches us these things. So the Gita values is to help us achieve answers to those things. And there are 6 of them. We'll go through them slowly, not in detail. They're designed to be sequential. It's kind of where Bhagavad Gita starts. Chapter 2 is you're not the body. But then if you understand you're not the body, comes, if I'm not the body, then he and she and they, other entities even, living entities, they're not the body. So sama darshana is living your life in not just in neutrality, but in a positive sense, that you see other living entities with dignity and respect and regard, equal vision, despite differences, and despite the Chinese government is what it is and Donald Trump is who he is. I'm not a fan of that fellow, like a lot of other people. But he's a spirit soul, and the man is troubled, and so on. So, as you approach and develop that equal vision nature, it's already there, it just has to be awakened, then we start to make choices. Icha, free will, is there in every living entity at every moment, and we're making choices at every moment because it's part of who we are. On the soul platform, there's impelling forces on the psychophysical nature side, but we don't have to act according to that, depending, whatever that might be. We can say yes or no, or let me pause. We have the capacity of free will choice. And when we make free will choices, it can then naturally lead to the spiritual capacity of acting in a non-violent way, or acting without harming other living entities. Just a little sharing on this one. I hope it's okay. it's on topic, but it's just kind of over there and over there. One plane ride, I often ride Southwest because there's several reasons. Because you can cancel the flights if you have to, and you don't lose all your money, and you can have 2 bags, and so. I got an aisle seat. You have you pick your own seats. So I got an aisle seat. I like aisle seats, and the plane was filling up, and this is just a little inside information. Because I wear a dhoti, often people don't like to sit next to me. So when it comes to the plane filling up, if there's empty seats, that one next to me is usually one of them. But very early in the flight, a college girl asked, "Is it okay? Is anybody sitting there? Can I sit there?" So it was just after exam time, and kids were going home for Christmas vacation or something like that. And so conversation. She's got her Bible out. I thought, okay, she's going to try to save me. And that's not what happened. She said, the other thing that people was the curiosity question. Are you part of a religious organization? And sometimes I say, well, it's not Halloween. But I didn't say that to her. I said, yeah, and so she, what is it? And you started in the Christian upbringing, and what brought you to this, and so we got into that territory. So I asked her. I brought up the topic of vegetarian, and it's a fundamental teaching. Thou shalt not kill. And are you vegetarian? No. And why not? So she pulled out. She had this place, that place, and that place, and the other place. No, not like an argument. She wasn't an arguing, save me type person. She was a thoughtful college, Columbia University student. And the bottom line for her was, in the book of Matthew or something, there's some statement that says, here, people should not be barred from the mercy of Christ because of the food they eat. She said, okay, that makes sense to me. But supposing, let's do this, a real Christian is not just verse and chapter. A real Christian is one who wants to please Christ. Your life is to please Christ. Would you agree? Yes. So supposing Christ is holding a lamb, and you're a college student from Columbia University, you've got money and you have choices, and you say to Christ, can I have that lamb? I'd like to kill the lamb and eat the lamb. What's he going to say? Yes or no? Because, the Sea of Galilee and fishes and things like that, that's not Columbia University grad student. They had no choices. You have choices. So, she just was stuck on this, you're not barred from the mercy of Christ by what you eat. Which doesn't say, okay, but if you have a choice, wouldn't this harming living entities at my expense, less is better? It just didn't go in. I was really surprised. So I should I just left. Think about it. Think about it. What's pleasing to Christ? Because that's your life. Then there's some younger people here. We had little youth gathering in another place, and I was asking, what are some of the challenges that you meet in school? Young people, elementary, middle school, high school. One of them said, I have a friend, and I've been trying to help my friend become vegetarian, but I don't know how to do it because she just says it's yummy. So I said, why don't you ask her, what if human flesh is even more yummy? You draw the line between things you do and things you don't do, besides it's yummy. So what are some of the principles to live by that are besides it's yummy? It feels good, do it. That's called hedonism. And the culture of hedonism, if it feels good, do it. It's a degraded society. So what are some other principles to consider? So you can try that path. She said, I'll try, but she just says it's yummy. That's as far as I get. I became vegetarian. I didn't grow up vegetarian, but I became vegetarian before I met Hare Krishna devotees, just on this principle. It's really simple. If those of you that are young people and you have friends that don't understand, or they may think it's cool, but some people think it's dumb. Why are you vegetarian? It's just very simple. If I can live my life in such a way it causes less pain and suffering for other living entities, that's a better way to live. It's really simple. That's all it took, and I became vegetarian. But Bhagavad Gita teaches more than vegetarian. This without harm is, once you know the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, you're obliged to at least model the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, and whenever the opportunity provides itself according to the circumstance, you give knowledge, because if you don't give knowledge, then suffering is going to continue, and if you're an instrument of someone's suffering continue, and it doesn't have to be, that's violence. Here's a little example. You're a physician, and you're off of work. You finished your job at the hospital, and you're walking home. You got your little black bag that has all your doctor stuff in it, and you see somebody writhing in pain on the sidewalk. I'm off duty. You just walk right by. Is that violence or non-violence? You can do something. Or let's just say, you're not a doctor, you're just a person. You see this bigger kid beating up on a little kid, a bully, smashing, tormenting, shaking, and the little one is, you just keep walking. I can't do that. I saw a situation like that. It was in Delhi, and the bully kid probably could have whooped me, but I couldn't just walk by, let that happen. So, if there's something you can do when you know the people that are suffering, you know why they're suffering, you don't do anything. That's violence. That's the explanation that Prabhupada gives in Bhagavad Gita. Well, that's, when you get there, that's one of the Gita values. You don't just go running around and whacking people with the Bhagavad Gita knowledge and say, shame on you, you're causing suffering. But in an appropriate manner, time, place, circumstance manner, you act with this way that you're reducing the pain and suffering in the world. And one of the best ways to do that is by your own example. So that's another value in Bhagavad Gita. Humility and affection. So there's a little course that's been organized to teach these 6 Gita values to newer people and our existing people, so that we can better explain it to newer people, and we can also live our lives with deeper understanding of why we're living our lives the way that we're living our lives, instead of just following blindly. Because Mom and Dad said, and that's one of our family values, but it's Krishna's value. Each one of the 6 Gita values helps us to step out of negative emotions and step into the Bhagavad Gita. And that's it. That's our last slide. So we're offering our respectful obeisances and trying to learn the teachings of Bhagavad Gita through our founder Acharya and trying to model them as much as we can, gradually more and more in our lives, and extend those teachings to others by our example and by our words. And that's it. That's the final slide. So let's turn the lights back on. Pretty simple, huh? So you'll get one of these at the end. This is just, front and back. No, it's 2 pages. The 6 Gita values in a really little short paragraph that went through many refinements before it came to this. It's just simple language that explains what the value is. And when you become familiar with these, they're like keys that open the next level, the next level, the next level. And so when you read Bhagavad Gita, the message, it's a lens through which to look at the message of Bhagavad Gita. And it unlocks some of the mystery. So any discussion? I'm impressed that our young people sitting here aren't more fidgety than they are. It's tough being a young person sitting through something like this sometimes. I've experienced. So compliments to you guys.
Very good.
Krishna, you mentioned about these 6 points that one can apply and be compassionate to the suffering. And what about the one who is suffering? What is his chance with these 6 points? How does he apply?
I'm suffering. How do I get relief of my suffering along with helping other people from their suffering? That's your question.
Yes, that's one. And if one is helpless, he has. How does he apply these?
If one is helpless, well, we're not helping. One may be feeling helpless, but we're not helpless. Just be clear what your question is, because I have to respond to your question.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So one is in a...
You're feeling helpless.
Yes.
Or you are helpless. Which?
Feeling helpless.
Feeling helpless. So how does Bhagavad Gita help one who's feeling helpless? How does it assist one get out of that feeling of helplessness? That's your question?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
Because I'll respond to it if that's what your question is. So that's just there's a whole seminar, a 4-part seminar on that question. But so I'll distill it down to something simple. But it's it certainly needs to be expanded to be effective. I'll do 2 things out of 50. One of them is a pyramid. And the bottom of the pyramid is negative emotions. Tamagun. And then Rajagun, Sattvagun, and transcendence. We'll call that transcendence the place of higher consciousness. This is for the public audience. And through anyone that has done meditation, because they're in public audiences. It's a trendy thing. People know you can experience this place of higher consciousness. And when you experience the place of higher consciousness, the negative emotions, at least for some time, they're not harassing you. And then, back to the negative emotions, because the modes of material nature have a hold. So the bhakti process teaches us how to stay in that place of higher consciousness and ultimately dissolve the subtle body, which is the place where that feeling of helplessness is. The lower modes become elevated to higher modes of nature, and higher consciousness that's of the soul, it's of who we really are, can be accessed. When it's done properly, under proper guidance, it becomes your real nature. You can realize real nature, and that helplessness thing is gone. There's some other intermediate steps that are assets to that transcendental one, and I'll just share one of the other 49. You're not that emotion. So the exercise goes like this. This is people that it's their profession to help people who are feeling overwhelmed with depression or negative emotions and stuff like that. It's not the only thing, but there's a TV screen, and the mind is like the TV screen. It is blank, and on that TV screen, or within the TV screen, there's an image. And you see the image on the TV screen, and you may feel some emotion in relation to that image that's in the TV screen. But the TV screen is blank, the image is not reality, and the emotion connected to the image is not reality. And you're the observer of all those things, the screen, the image, and the emotion. And you're the observer. And in many cases, the perception of that image in the screen doesn't match reality. Like, for example, I'm taking you through one of the presentations that I've been doing at colleges a lot. There is a real story. So a lady from a 1-800 suicide hotline received a call from a girl who said, "I'm contemplating suicide. What happened? My boyfriend didn't answer my phone call." And being a trained professional, she said, "Oh, really? So have you had that emotion before?" And it turns out she grew up in a family where she was abandoned in her childhood, and so there was this fear of abandonment because her boyfriend didn't answer her phone call. It's triggered by something else. So the reality, this panic, negative emotion, doesn't even match reality. So she had to coach or gather, gradually bring this girl from the position of, the negative emotion that she was captured by. Helplessness is one of them. We're not helpless. We can disconnect from that feeling by going to a place that's at least reduces the intensity of that feeling, and then as that negative feeling tendency becomes more manageable, then you can start to see things with greater clarity. And so that's not Bhagavad Gita's message, but Bhagavad Gita teaches the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita. We're not the body, and we're not the subtle body either, and not the emotions within the subtle body. So that's theory, but theory in practice becomes the message of Bhagavad Gita. So we're not alone. Helplessness comes from a sense I'm trapped. There's nothing I can do about it. So there are circumstances in life where, when it's cold, it's cold. Or when there's this part of duality, there's nothing you can do about it. So how you respond to it is something that you have a choice. And now how am I going to respond? So life throws rocks at you, and it hurts. And there's nothing you can do. Life threw rocks at you, and it hurts. Now what?
How you respond to it?
Yeah. And where do you go? So do you go into the duality illusion program, or do you go to the reality program? And what's the reality program look like? So people are generally not acquainted with what reality is, what real happiness is, who we really are. And if we can take shelter of those realities, then we can have strength to address that feeling, the helplessness feeling, and whatever are the other negative emotions feeling. Knowledge lifts you. Transcendental knowledge. Ramchandra?
Maharaj, thank you for speaking on this topic and setting the stage for Gita Jayanti,
Hey!
which is on Saturday. And just to let everybody know, on Saturday we are doing a Gita Jayanti program at the center.
Yay!
We're going to recite the entire Bhagavad Gita, only the translations, Prabhupada's English translations, not the Sanskrit. So I encourage everybody to participate. So Arjun had Krishna with him to help him out in the battlefield.
Yeah.
And this always comes, well, Lord Krishna was there, we
Yeah.
don't have Krishna, but we have Prabhupada's books, we have the devotees, we have all the information.
You're giving the answer to the question. You're supposed to just ask the question.
Yet, despite having all that, still
We struggle.
we struggle. Why?
Well, we struggle because we're conditioned souls. We've taken shelter of illusion. And even we have the means to get ourselves out of illusion, we're habituated, we're addicted to illusion. We're not addicted to the suffering, we're addicted to the causes of suffering. And because of that affinity for the temporary and trying to be the enjoyer of the temporary, it keeps us in this struggling position. Mama Maya Duratyaya. So we have not yet fully taken the solution. Maya mitam tarantite. Take shelter of Krishna and you can easily cross beyond that struggle. So it's a gradual process. That's why we continue to struggle. Here's another story I tell all the time. Once a reporter asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, how long did it take to become Krishna conscious? Prabhupada's immediate answer, less than a moment. And in that less than a moment, just two things. One, the tendency to try to be the enjoyer of the fruits of your activities and experience sense gratification, you have to give it up. And the other is the tendency to understand higher truths of life by power of speculation, you have to give it up. Just two things. And generally people are attached to those two things, and therefore generally the process is gradual. But all it takes is less than a moment. And we're attached to those two things. Just, we're habituated to them. So we need to establish other habits by abhyasa, by practice, by constant practice. by right means, we're assured of success. But when we continue to struggle, because we're heavily conditioned by those things. Affinity for the temporary. Yep.
On a different topic. There are many things you may tell, but if there was one or two, how can a devotee please, if they're initiated, their spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada, out of the many, many, many things? The reason I ask this is because we work in the material world. We know the more we work, the better we work, the harder we work, we can make more money. And on the spiritual side, we know the more time we put in, because this is reality, our dharma is to serve God, soul's nature, that I will go closer to Krishna, or I will cleanse myself to be closer to Krishna. But yet, we spend so much time working for our material needs, which is our duty. But for spiritual, when it comes, we time it. I can only do so much. I can only do so much. So what is, end of the day, I just want to know, what is pleasing to Srila Prabhupada? What is pleasing to my Guru Maharaj?
Well, connect everything to Krishna. I mean, this is you're stating it differently, but it's the classic question that I hear regularly, and that's this balance. How do I balance between the two parts of my life? And my answer is, the approach is mistaken. It's not balance, it's time management. And the lesson of time management is put the big rocks first. You know that. You know the example. Those of you that don't know, this little boy, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd like you to give a thoughtful answer. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I just panicked him out. Okay. Here's a glass jar, and over here there's a rock, and over here there's some smaller stones, and over there there's some pebbles, and over there there's some sand, and they all fit in. If you do it right, it's like it all fits in. So what goes in first?
The rocks.
The big one, right? You put the big one in first, because if you put the sand and the pebbles and the little stones, then try to fit in the big rock, it's not going to fit. But you put the big rock, and then the next size and the next size, and then you jiggle the sand, and it all fits in. Right? So, that's time management lesson 101. What's the big rocks? What's the big rocks? You don't have to answer this. But big rocks means what's really important. So if you, something that I encourage all people to do, same thing I was doing with this lady from Chengdu. What's really important is to know who you are. And that's just, keep going, and you learn more than who you are. That's knowledge, and then there's confidential knowledge, and there's more confidential knowledge, and there's most confidential knowledge. But it starts with knowing who you are. And there's some things that we need to do, that's the big rock, that's going to help us know who we really are. And that goes in first. That's the time management lesson. So what are those things that help us understand who we really are? And we know their devotional answer, and you do those things. It goes in first. So your day, that goes in first. And then the other things should be driven or in alignment with who you really are. So, you're bathing, and you're eating, and you're doing your homework, or you're doing your assignment from work, whatever. So you're cooking in the kitchen. And everything's to be done in alignment with who you really are. But you have to, the big rock goes in first, every day. And then in the bigger picture, besides the day, the week and the month, and because it's a little bit, there's an ebb and there's a flow with, well, in school, did you have exams before Thanksgiving? Did you have exams or no?
Yes.
Yes? Did you have exams? Yeah. So when it's exam time, it's full court press. You want to do really well. And then there's times when it's, it's not so much pressure. Let's say summertime is less pressure. So there's ebb and there's flow. Anyway, in the course of any given period of time, there's more pressure upon us. And there's times that there's less pressure upon us. But even when there's big pressure upon you, the big rock goes in first. Because then you'll perform better in the other activities if the big rock goes in first. You remind me, and I'll share with you a little video. The marketing of the video, someone sent this to me. And it's interesting. It says, billionaires all do this. So that's the marketing thing. Did I send it to you? No? My Ayurvedic doctor taught me the same thing, but this is like science says, if any sleep after 10 p.m. is less effective. You need more sleep if you sleep after 10 o'clock so that your body is rested. It has to do with how the body functions, without all the details you can. And then if you get up by 4 o'clock, this is what the Ayurvedic doctor said, and before the sun rises, they don't say Brahma Muhurta, they just say before 4 o'clock. But by 4 o'clock. This is their marketing line. So that, the Ayurvedic doctor said, better is 9 o'clock. So I like taking, this is a little exception because it's already 9 o'clock. But I like taking rest at that hour because I've learned it's true. And then and when you do your big rock first in the morning, your work is more effective. You'll do better at school. You'll do better at your job. You'll do better in your relationships with your family members and with everything that you do if there's that clarity. So put the big rock in first. You don't have to. You can put the other rocks in first. And then the big rock doesn't fit. But so it's not like all you do is the big rock, unless you're a sannyasi. And even you're a sannyasi, you do things, counseling people and this and that. It's an interesting life style of a sannyasi. I do have freedom. I don't have a job, but I have another kind of job. It's just very demanding. That's okay. I like it. But big rock goes in first. Every day. And then over a period of time, it has a cumulative effect and there's more clarity. And so then my experience is the more that you have clarity, you're asking with greater sincerity when you're chanting Hare Krishna for service, and you get more service. And when you have more service, it looks like, gosh, how am I going to do all this service? But then you're determined to be in service to Krishna, and then you get the capacity to do more service, and Krishna gives you more service. It's just, whatever your life, whatever ashram you're in, your lifestyle is, when you put in the big rock first, you get busy. You have lots of service. We had some question yesterday evening about service. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of service. Sometimes the service just squeezes your hearing and chanting, and then everything goes down. Relationships go down and everything goes down. Your feelings go down. You go down to the lower part of the pyramid. You're trapped by the circumstance. You're not trapped by it. You created the circumstance. Just put the big rock in first. It's time management. So I need so much for this, and I need so much for brushing my teeth, I need so much for doing my homework or my work, my job. I need so much for my family, I need so much for my exercise, and it's blocks of time. It's pretty simple, but the big rock goes first. So it's not balance, it's just time management. You understand what your needs are, and you budget your time, and when the bell rings, that's it. You go to the next thing. So then you have to be very concentrated. How are you going to be very concentrated? Put the big rock in first. You'll be more concentrated if you do, and it's a mess if you don't. There was a time that I had more discretionary time than I do now. And one of the things that I did was just sharing the same point. I had people fill out a sadhana sheet and send it to me. And the realization, universally, at those that actually did it, they found there's a 1-to-1 correlation between good, strong sadhana in the morning and the day goes well, sloppy sadhana in the morning and the day goes horrible. It's not. Have good sadhana in the morning, and then you do the other things with attentiveness and care and effectiveness. And be satisfied with what comes from that as far as career development. You do something, but so anything else? Long answer to an important question. You have something?
Yeah, Maharaj.
You had that look on your face.
With regards to the priority, would you say the top priority should be more focused on chanting? The big rock should be more
Chanting as opposed to what?
chanting in a sense, doing the japa.
Well, how about hearing and chanting? Shravanam Kirtanam. Is that all right? So, supposing I just chant and I don't read. Supposing I read and I don't chant. Because this is the priority, no, that's the priority. Or I just like reading and I really don't like chanting. I like chanting, I don't like reading. And I just do one or the other. It's incomplete. I mean, ultimately, if you're Sukadeva Goswami, just chant. But for the rest of us that aren't Sukadeva Goswamis, we need to also read. Because that guides our activities as the heart becomes cleansed and you feel something. You feel this higher consciousness place, you feel satisfied, etc. The heart becomes cleansed. But the heart becomes cleansed from hearing also. You're reading. Vidunoti sarit satam. You know the verse. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhag. So, what Prabhupada's teaching, a train moves on 2 tracks, and similarly, spiritual life moves on 2 tracks. One makes the heart clean, the other guides our activity. You have one without the other, you can have sentimentality becomes fanaticism, and over there you have dry philosophy. You need both. Our activities need to be guided. There are perplexing situations in life. How do we guide our activity in those perplexing situations? There's a follow-up. Go ahead. I can feel it. I mean, you didn't say anything.
Shravanam and Kirtanam, right?
Yeah.
So we have 9 processes of.
Yeah, but it starts there.
Right. So the topmost of the Shravanam Kirtanam.
Yeah, that's 2 of them.
So when you chant, you hear yourself, right? Chanting. Is that still?
Sometimes people don't. But that's what's supposed to happen.
Technically, like.
Yeah, technically.
Loud, you would
Yes, audible.
want to hear
Audible, yes.
Right.
But if the mind is over there, the mouth can be over here and the mind is over there. You're not hearing. So now, what's your follow-up point?
I think what I was narrowing into was in terms of big rocks, right? Going back to the
Big rock?
The big rocks, right? So, would you say in terms of, from devotee standpoint, the way we should tailor our life, tailor our schedule is such that
Yes.
we should,
Yes.
first thing we should focus on
Okay. Okay.
is chanting and hearing.
This particular point that you're making is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's point to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, which is, of all the things, what's the most important? Chanting the holy name is most important. And we need to guide our activities. So it's part of our tradition. Lord Chaitanya's tradition and the line of Lord Chaitanya, they didn't just chant and teach people, don't worry about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, just chant. So I'm adding that. And Prabhupada gave that to us. Yes.
So Maharaj, in relation to that, like doing your sadhana, chanting and reading and all that. So
Good.
On a particular day, like day-to-day life as a grihastha and as as a professional life, you spend 8 to 10 hours for work versus chanting and hearing and all that. Reading is like maybe 2 to 3 hours, maximum 2 hours on a daily basis.
Fantastic. You're doing great if you do that.
But that's what, and maybe that's all you can do, at least maybe 2 hours.
Fine.
But on top of that, there are services sometimes that
Okay.
you cannot do it.
Okay.
So then people come back and say, hey, you are chanting, you are asking for more service. But now you're saying, no, I cannot do service because I'm already doing my sadhana. I don't have time for other services because this is my schedule.
And do you say with a frown or with a smile?
No, with a smile, but
Okay, so what's the problem?
So is that still considered like a balance, like 10 hours for work and
No,
2 hours for
it's
sadhana?
not balance, it's time management. And with time management, there's this much time for this thing. And there's that much time for that thing, and that's if you want to put something else in, fantastic. What's going to go out? But it's not. What's not going to go out is the big rock.
Yes.
Some people neglect their family because that's dispensable because I got to do service. You can't neglect. That the sand goes in with the big rock, and there's so much sand, not unlimited amount of sand. So, it's time management, it's not balance. That's me speaking. Now somebody else could say something else, that's me speaking. If we have clarity as to what my needs are, then I manage my time according to what my needs are. And if I neglect one of those needs, it's going to show up later. If I don't take care of my family, if I don't take care of my job, if I don't brush my teeth, there's things that I have to do. They're needs. You don't exercise, whatever it is. So it's not, you don't go way over there. You don't go way over there. It's time management for Krishna. It's all aligned with this who am I question. And I want to live according to who I am. Not just my mind, but me. Then you smile. See if there's somebody else. Anybody else back there? Anything? Because he's got something he wants to say. But I want to include everybody. I see some devotees smiling, but no one's raising their hand. Okay, Ramchandra.
I just want to share a real life example. This was in the mid-90s when I was working full-time. I was going to school full-time, and I was doing a side business, network marketing. And at that time, the big rocks, which I just started doing for the last couple of years, which was chanting, hearing, going to the temple every Sunday, was very difficult to follow. And I remember approaching you. And I exactly remember what part of the temple I approached you in our discussion. And you said, tell me everything about it. And I told you exactly how my day was. And I said, I want to chant, I want to not miss the Sunday program, I want to take up services. And after you heard everything, you told me that even if I did, meaning if you did what I did, you said you would not be able to chant your rounds. So I said, then what to do? He said, you're smart enough, you make a decision. And we went back home, and me and my wife decided to give up the business at least, because I had to work and go to school. And that had started well. We were making about a couple of $1,000s back in the 90s. It was a hard decision because we said, no, we want to do it. And as Maharaj cannot do it, how can we do it? So we, instead of struggling with it, we gave up that business. And by Krishna's mercy, we eventually got that covered. And today I'm still sitting in. So I always thank you for that, Maharaj, for that little. Many times we look for answers until we don't find the answer. We go to different people. But you just gave one sentence and said, you're smart, you make that, you decide. And fortunately, we made that decision to give up something that was very important.
Yeah. So, like this, people say you got to do more service. You smile. So, so it's a value. And I value knowing who I am, and I don't want to lose track of who I am, and I want to know who I am, and I want to connect that who I am with where everything comes from, and I want to connect everything with where everything comes from, and I don't want to deviate from that, because the other is, the Rajagun leads to Tamagun. Kamesha Krodesha. Rajoguna Samudbhava. So I'm not going to, no thank you. I'll work as needed to take care of necessities, and Krishna will provide whatever Krishna provides, and I'll be happy with that. No, anyway, counseling, career development, and satisfaction. Some of that needs to be there because it's a need. It's a psychological, emotional need. So it's not just repress it or trash it. It's manage your time wisely. Don't compromise the big rock. Some things have to be just put to the side. And if you have the capacity to do all of that, then do all of it. And if you, like everybody else, it doesn't have the capacity to do all of that, then something you just eliminate some things, but not the essentials. Okay, so we're done. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.